Just imagine for the Montreal Canadiens, high-scoring, French-speaking, number one center in his prime hits the trade block. A match made in hockey heaven. Now imagine that situation ending in divorce in only 110 games. How did something that makes so much sense fall apart so quickly? In a mad dash to make the playoffs in the lockout-shortened 1994-1995 season, the Montreal Canadiens attempted to jolt their struggling offense with a blockbuster trade. In a transaction almost too good to be true, Montreal legend general manager Serge Savard acquired the ultra-talented number one center Pierre Turgeon from the New York Islanders. Leaving Montreal was the current captain of the Habs, Kirk Muller. A bold move for both franchises, as both players were integral parts of the deep playoff runs in the 1993 postseason, where Pierre Turgeon and the Islanders upset the powerhouse Penguins, making it to the conference finals only to be defeated by Kirk Muller and the 1993 Stanley Cup winning Montreal Canadiens. This was the second big trade of the shortened season for Serge Savard, who back in February dealt John LeClair and Eric Desjardins for high-scoring winger Mark Recchi. Shockingly, as the Flyers looked to shake up their roster after a 3-6-2 start, they unknowingly created one of the greatest lines in hockey history, as John LeClair showed instant chemistry with Eric Lindros and Michael Renberg, forming the Legion of Doom. In my research for this video, I came across some great quotes from the Legion of Doomers, John LeClair and Eric Lindros, commenting on the Turgeon-Muller swap. LeClair was a line mate of Kirk Muller in the 1993 Cup run, who clearly sided with Muller's importance to the Habs versus Turgeon's potential skill. No way could the Canadiens trade Kirk Muller. No way. I just can't believe it. Pierre Turgeon? He would have to score 150 points in Montreal to come close to doing for the Canadiens what Kirk Muller did. Lindros would add, Turgeon didn't give the Islanders the grit and leadership that Muller will. Except for the age, it's a very good trade for the Islanders. Just some quotes to keep in mind with how Turgeon's peers viewed him at the time. So while the Recchi-LeClair trade did wonders for the Flyers' offense, it did not have the same effect for the Canadiens. As the weeks progressed and the Habs found themselves on the playoff bubble, how could you pass up adding a superstar like Pierre Turgeon, who had scored 132 and 94 points the previous two seasons? Although we would later learn in a report by Red Fisher of the Montreal Gazette, Turgeon wasn't the player Canadiens GM Serge Savard initially wanted to acquire. He originally tried for Joe Nieuwendyk from Calgary first, but couldn't make a deal work. Nieuwendyk was traded to the Dallas Stars the next season for Jarome Iginla. How about that for a fun what-if in hockey history? And while it's still considered a dark day on Long Island that a player of that caliber could ever be traded, we've all talked about how we all expected something to happen, but when you see the trainers come up and pack up Pierre Turgeon's bag, it kind of makes your stomach turn, said teammate Ray Ferraro. For Montreal, it was an opportunity to infuse some scoring in an offense that at the NHL trade deadline ranked second to last in the league. We wouldn't have made the trade if we didn't think we had a good chance of making the playoffs, said Serge Savard. We needed a better power play. Another huge motivation for the trade was getting winger Mark Recchi going. While he started off hot for the Canadiens, February 25th and a thrashing by the Flyers and specifically the Legion of Doom started a massive slump for Recchi, with only 1 point in the following 8 games. No doubt a headache compounded by John LeClair's dominance in Philly. Recchi still had 26 points in 24 games with the Canadiens at the time of the Islanders trade. However, Pierre Turgeon was definitely brought on board in part to maximize what was quickly becoming an embarrassing trade for Savard. A few hours after the deal was complete, the former first overall pick of the Buffalo Sabres found himself on the Habs' top line, centering a high-powered combo of Mark Recchi and Vincent Damphousse against the Quebec Nordiques. Quite a day for Quebec native Pierre Turgeon. In the newly formed top line's debut against Quebec, with the Canadiens down 5-3 in the third period, Turgeon, Damphousse, and Recchi showed what they were capable of. First with Damphousse and Turgeon assisting on a Brian Fogarty goal to bring the Canadiens within 1. Pierre Turgeon then scored his first as a Canadian to tie the game 5-5, of course assisted by Damphousse and Mark Recchi. Vincent Damphousse sealed the line's magical debut, scoring the game winner on the power play, assisted by newly acquired 25-year-old Pierre Turgeon. That's quite the first impression, as management had to be thrilled with the trio's combined 8 points on the night. Unfortunately, the Canadiens' late-season attempt at a postseason berth ultimately fell short, but not due to a lack of production from the first line. In just 15 games together, left winger Vincent Damphousse scored 15 points, Pierre Turgeon 11 goals and 20 points, with Recchi registering 20 points of his own. However, it's not like Turgeon was a rental. It was a positive start for the trio to build upon the chemistry already displayed in such a short time. The next year would leave a lasting scar on Montreal fans, although it had little to do with Pierre Turgeon, as he was the team's most productive offensive weapon. After missing the playoffs for the first time in 25 years, head coach Jacques Demers and Serge Savard's seats were perhaps unfairly high, which became nuclear as the team started 0-4. Not wanting to risk the season getting out of hand and missing the playoffs yet again, the team cleaned house, firing both men and bringing in Montreal Tremblay to coach and Bergeron Houle as the franchise's new general manager. As the team only scored 4 goals in the team's first 5 games, the firing sparked the club as the Canadiens ripped off 12 wins in the next 14 games, with the offense catching fire. Pierre Turgeon went from 1 assist in the team's first 5 games to 31 points in the team's next 18 contests, 8th in the entire NHL in that span. While it was tempting for the team to stack the first line with 3 potential 100-point players, Montreal Tremblay decided to put Vinny Damphousse back to his natural center position, anchoring the second line, while Turgeon skated again with Recchi, and on the other side, 24-year-old Brian Savage. Turgeon and Recchi gelled perfectly and scored over a point-per-game pace, but the true surprise of the trio was the promoted Brian Savage, who will go on the greatest scoring tear of his career. By the end of November, Brian Savage had 18 goals in 23 games. That was more than Eric Lindros, Joe Sakic, and Paul Kariya, and it was only eclipsed by Alexander Mogilny, Jaromir Jagr, and Mario Lemieux. At one point in early November, Savage was actually tied with Mario for the league lead and would comment, "I should pinch myself, Mario and me. The odds must have been pretty high on that." But as the calendar flipped to December, the 2nd specifically, a ticking time bomb in the locker room detonated on the ice as Montreal Tremblay and Patrick Roy's relationship, and more specifically Patrick Roy's relationship with the Montreal Canadiens, was officially over. There's been plenty of coverage and breakdown of that infamous game over the years, and not to get too in-depth into what happened, but if trading Patrick Roy told you anything, it was that the Canadiens management and former teammates were going to do things their way, even at the risk of losing an icon in Montreal. If you're enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing, as I'm hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers. I would appreciate your support as I break down the most famous and not so famous line combinations in hockey history. That trade, while obviously affecting the team defensively, also impacted the offense. Pierre Turgeon was now named team captain as Mike Keane joined Patrick Roy in Colorado, and coming back was an influx of top 6 talent in Martin Ruchinski and Andrei Kovalenko. Kovalenko came handy, having 22 points in 26 games for the Avalanche, and specifically for Turgeon and Recchi, as his goal-scoring abilities would be needed while Brian Savage's unreal goal-scoring pace cooled off. Cool off to the tune of only 2 goals in December and 5 in the remaining 38 games. While the Canadiens were hovering around 500 at the time of the controversial Roy trade, to their credit, Montreal did not collapse. In fact, finding their way back into the playoffs after going 28, 19, and 11 after the unpopular transaction. Unfortunately, while the Canadiens made the playoffs, they didn't stay in them long, blowing the 2-0 series lead to the New York Rangers, losing the series in 6 games. Before Pierre Turgeon and his first full year in the Canadiens uniform, he checked off many boxes that the franchise had hoped for when acquiring him a year earlier. He meshed well with Recchi, who ended the season with 78 points in 82 games. Also showed he can play with many wingers as the other wing rotated between Savage, Kovalenko, and Valeri Bure. Turgeon created amazing depth at the center position, allowing Vincent Damphousse to slide onto the second line where he'd score 94 points, and push Saku Koivu to the third line. He also led the team in scoring as a true franchise center, scoring 38 goals and 96 points, also leading Montreal in shots with 297, the second most of his career. Originally acquired to boost the team's offense and power play, he did just that. From the 17th ranked power play at 16.22% and the 22nd ranked offense in the lockout year, to the 10th ranked offense and a power play of 19.1%, good for 8th best in the entire league. This is why, as Pierre Turgeon entered training camp in the 1996-1997 season, he was shocked to learn his role with the franchise would be dramatically changing. The team's leading scorer, who had so far produced 116 points in 95 regular season games as a Canadian, was being relegated to a defensive role as the team's third-line center. And just like that, Mario Tremblay alienated their most talented offensive player, just as he did to their franchise cup-winning goaltender. And his good friend GM Rajan Houle had his back. On October 29th, as Pierre Turgeon had 11 points in 9 games in a reduced role, was shipped off to the St. Louis Blues for Shane Corson, Murray Baron, and a 5th round. But how could this be? Mario Tremblay just a few months earlier chose Pierre Turgeon to be his captain, the new face of the franchise, as he made the All-Star team and led the team in points. That wasn't symbolic enough that he was the guy. He was literally handed the torch with hockey royalty in attendance following the final game at the historic Montreal Forum and the opening of the Molson Center. How could we go from that just a few months earlier, a 27-year-old point-per-game player, to now being expected to play a role usually reserved for aging veterans or less skilled forwards? One word constantly comes up when you try to unpack this trade, both at the time and looking back: soft. It's one of, if not the worst label to have as a hockey player. Pierre Turgeon, since the day he was drafted, had a reputation as being a soft player. And in the 1990s National Hockey League, soft is a definite no-no. It's how players like Luc Robitaille and Matt Sundin could get traded for power forwards like Rick Tocchet and Wendell Clark. Awesome scorers in their own right, but at the times of the trades, their styles didn't allow them to be elite scorers any longer. Toughness in the 1990s was at a premium, perhaps at an all-time high. Maybe we should have saw it coming, as in the summer the Canadiens traded Kovalenko for Scott Thornton. Kovalenko scored 32 goals for the Oilers, while Thornton provided 100 penalty minutes but only 10 goals. That 1990s mentality of toughness and grit, that's how you get a trade like Pierre Turgeon for Shane Corson. We have nothing against Pierre Turgeon, he's an excellent player, but we have 3 good centers on this team, said Rajan Houle. We could not find a place for Turgeon on our first line. He wanted to be a number 1 player. He got plenty of ice time, but he didn't feel comfortable here. It was a lack of chemistry between him and Mario Tremblay. The idea of trading Pierre Turgeon isn't the most egregious. It's the return that felt wrong. As to this day, no Montreal player has topped Turgeon's point totals from his only full season with the franchise. Just as the Islanders receiving Kirk Muller, the return just wasn't enough. Yes, you still have Saku Koivu at Damphousse, but this was not prime Shane Corson, who the Canadiens had a few years back after drafting him 8th overall. Also, Damphousse would be turning 30 in a few months, perhaps keep the younger center to go along with Saku Koivu. So this soft reputation, which to be fair wasn't totally undeserved, as Pierre Turgeon did seem to disappear a bit in the playoffs and physical play, seems to me the most prevalent theory as to why he was selected to take a back seat on the depth chart and eventually traded away. Amazingly, this marked 4 consecutive years the Montreal Canadiens traded their captain, from Guy Carbonneau to Kirk Muller to Mike Keane to Pierre Turgeon. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more Line Combo content.